Hello, everyone. My name is Philip, and this is the first episode of the Red Cannon podcast. It is a pilot, so don't be too harsh on me. The sound and image is not perfect, and it will improve with time. And if you're being too harsh, please leave your feedback in the comments. Today, I would like to talk about some conclusions I've made about just finished 24-25 season. I think there are three areas where Arteta and the coaching staff should improve for the next season in order to take us to that desired next level. The first one is rotation of players and generally better usage of squad available. Second is predictability of play. And third, which is a bit less important, but still that was noticeable, is patient development of players, and especially young players. For this episode, I will focus only on the first problem, which is rotation of players. Highlight why I believe the rotation is crucial for a successful elite team. Except the obvious reasons of avoiding heavy muscular injuries and keeping your players fresh and fit in the final stages of the season and not on the hospital bed, like someone this year, I will highlight 5 main reasons. So, first one is motivation of starting players. So it is important that the players who usually start in lineup don't start to stagnate and they actually still give their best in every game and their level continues to improve. I know it's not a big problem with the current Arteta's team, given his attitude, his non-negotiables, and the way he works with the team, but still, if we take someone like Bukayo Saka, who starts week in and week out, and sometimes he even starts 2 times per week for 2-3 weeks in a row, his brain would automatically start to select more important and less important games, and then in the less important games he would not go full in. He would spare himself from some nasty tackles. He would not give that extra sprint, and I don't blame the player here. It's how our brains are wired. If the first priority problem of keeping your starting spot on the pitch is solved, then the brain switch to the next problems is how to save the body. So it's good to avoid that. And the second problem is belief of the bench player that they actually have the way into the starting team. But if they continue improving, if they continue working hard and demonstrating their level on the pitch, they will get more gaming time. We don't want to get into a situation where somebody just claps on the camera from the bench just because they've been filmed closely. The players don't want to hope to get their chance only if someone above them in the ranking gets injured, and also they don't want to sit back on the bench whenever that player regains their full fitness level. They need to see the light in the tunnel and they need to be motivated to work hard, which brings us to the next point, that bench players don't look rusty. We had this familiar pattern with Jakub Kiwior year after year, so for 3 years in a row already. He comes in, and in the first game, they don't look good. He makes mistakes. The fans get angry. They demand to sell him. They demand to send him with a first EasyJet flight back to Poland. Obviously, it affects his confidence levels and creates just an unfair loop from which I'm not sure there is an easy way to exit. This year, he came in for injured Gabriel. First game was a bit shaky, and then he managed to hold Kylian Mbappe at bay. Season before, he was our starting left back in February and March in that long winning streak, and again, he was not half bad there. And 2 seasons before, when we struggled a bit with Rob Holding, he came in, was just awful in his game. Already in second or third, was quite on a decent level. And whatever Arteta says about standards and that everybody should be ready to come in on the pitch, there is much pace, there is much intensity, and every player should have enough time to adjust to it. So start 1 game every month, I think, would dramatically help in that regard. And the next point is also important. It makes it easier to attract and to recruit players for a wider squad. Now, it's no wonder that for 3 seasons running, we don't have a good replacement for Bukayo Saka. I mean, who would, in their sober mind, look at how Arteta tries to start him or play him at every opportunity he has and would want to come and fight for that position. I mean, unless they believe they're better than Saka, but I don't think there are many of those in the world. It's no wonder that Brian Bemo doesn't really want to come to Arsenal. I mean, his contract probably should include a lawn chair to just put on the grass and take a glass of lemonade and see Bukayo Saka running up and down that right wing. But the fact that he wants to join Man United or Spurs, it's not surprising at all, given that there he has all rights to believe he can claim the starting spot. And my last point is about predictability of play, which connects to the point on the slide before. I think every player has their weaknesses, but more importantly, strengths that are different, that are unique. And shuffling your squad makes it harder for opponent to prepare. Also, if you don't start, if you leave on the bench one or two of your best players, and you leave the opportunity to strengthen the team significantly, let's say in the last 30 minutes, it would be much harder for everyone to deal with Arsenal. Let's say you have Bukayo Saka for the last 30 minutes. How many games where we just couldn't unlock their deep block could have ended in a victory if Bukayo Saka would come and tear up the defense in the last 30 minutes? So imagine you can start Martin Odegaard 1 week, and the next week you can start Emil Smith. No, Fabio Vieira. No. There should be another number 10 in the team. I can't believe the club has allowed themselves to go only with one number 10. No, there should be someone. And it's actually no wonder that Pep Guardiola constantly shuffles his deck. Or more precisely, he shuffles it
more than you believe. More than you believe.
And there is even a term called Pep Roulette that is well known to fantasy players, which basically means that unless it's Erling Haaland, you can select another City player who you trust to be starting week in and week out. And it's a big surprise that Arteta, after working so many years under Pep or together with him, didn't consider this aspect of team management to be crucial, or he didn't learn to manage the wider squad properly. So now let's look at the data. Last season the squad was relatively fit, so we can see easier player usage by games started or matches or minutes played. But in this season, because of the vast number of injuries, because literally half of the team were out for a couple of months, this statistics is not valid anymore. So I took a shot at the way how to look at the data and see or detect Arteta's preferences. So let's look at the table here. It represents the 24-25 season. I've added here two columns. So first one is percentage of started games, which means that in how many games from the ones that player was in the match day squad, they have actually started. And the second column is participation rate, which is how many times they either started or came in from the bench. And I ordered it by the started percentage. We can see there, I've highlighted in green the start rate over 80% and participation over 90%. And in yellow, start rate over 40% and participation rate over 70%. And already we can see here there is a group of players. I would call it golden circle, the ones that Arteta tries to push on the pitch whenever he has chance. And there is a silver circle, which is the players that Arteta trusts to fight for the result in a competitive game. So not against lower league opponents, not when we're 3-0 up, but when we need to achieve the result. And the first circle, the golden circle, is 8 players. So just one note here, I focus only on outfield players. I don't think the statistics of goalkeepers is actually important because it's usually one who plays. And here there are only games from from Champions League and Premier League, and not from FA Cup and Carabao Cup. I think we all know that in Carabao Cup we played heavily rotated squads against lower league teams, and best choice 11 in both semi-finals against Newcastle and in the penalty loss against Man United. The first thing you can see is actually Gabriel Magalhães starting 100% of the games where he was in the matchday squad. So you can already see from here that Arteta doesn't rotate Gabriel and almost doesn't rotate William Saliba. And I guess that's already what's wrong with the approach. Jakub Kiwior is the first actually under the green and the yellow cells who Arteta doesn't trust. And we all know he wouldn't have played that much unless Gabriel wouldn't have injured him. So it's 8 players are the golden circle, and then either 14 or 15 is the silver circle. The one on the border is Gabriel Jesus. His participation rate is quite high, 92%, whereas his starting rate is only 37.5%. But still, he played only part of the season, so the statistics is not fully convincing, but let's even count him. It's 15 outfield players. And the likes of Kiwior, Jorginho, Nwaneri, Sterling, Zinchenko clearly see by this picture that they're not trusted. And there have been games where Sterling and Nwaneri started just because Arteta had literally no one else except Buenos, but it doesn't mean that they're in the trusted circle. Now let's switch to the previous season. And in the previous season, the picture is even more dramatic. So there are 7 players in the golden circle, ending with Havertz, and then there are arguably between 6 and 7 players, or maybe 6 and 8 players in the silver circle. The ones under question are Jorginho, with his, again, low starting rate, but I probably would include him since he played a lot in the final stretch of the season. And Edin Nketiah, who started only 23% of the games, which I don't think is enough to be considered trusted. So 14 in the silver circle. And this one actually highlights all the problems I have with it. We can see that row number 10 is Alexander Zinchenko, over 50% started, over 80% participated. But in current season, it's only 16% start rate and 50% participation rate. So the same player was part of the circle last year, but stopped being there. Why? Did the player become worse? Is he not on the Premier League level anymore? No, it's just we had Miles Lewis-Skelly, who quickly elevated his level to the basically guaranteed starter, to one of the first names on the team sheet. So Arteta didn't extend his circle. He just did a substitute in it, which is ironic, given how hesitant he is to use substitutes at times. And I honestly believe that 15 outfield players is not enough. We should be counting on at least 20, double squad. Maybe we can get away with 18, considering that usually 1 or 2 are constantly having some injuries and are not available for a number of reasons. So now let's look at the post where the minutes of players were generously assembled by the Canon Stats. I actually highly recommend this blog. It contains a lot of interesting statistics about Arsenal. This is Arsenal 24-25 season. Basically, what's plotted on his chart is number of minutes from the most used player to the least used player in the squad. And already on this picture, we can see actually true drops that I was talking about. So we can see the first drop around player number 9, and it probably includes goalkeeper David Raya, but it pretty much matches my golden circle, and then the another drop around player 15. And then the gradual decrease of minutes used. So these 2 significant drops actually represent these 2 circles that are used by Arteta. And now if we move to previous season, 23-24, we can see again the same picture. So there is a first drop around player number 8 here, and then the second drop around player number 16 here that goes below 1,000 minutes. The next one is below 1,000 minutes played. So again, this picture is pretty much highlighting the two circles that it has. And if we compare it with Manchester City, although I don't like them, but that's the best team we compete with, and that's the team that have shown that they actually were closest to winning all 4 titles in a season. So they should know well how to manage the squad in order to fight for all the competition. So this is last season where we took them to the last game week of the season to fight for the title. And we can see, yes, there is a similar drop after player 10, but then it's a gradual decrease of minutes used until player 18, which is above 1,000 minutes. So a bit different from the previous picture from Arsenal. And then let's move to the 22-23 season. And again, we see the similar picture. There is a first drop here on player number 9, and then gradual decrease until player 18 to 1,000 minutes. So as we can see, Guardiola doesn't have the second circle. On the first one, the set of preferred players, but then the rest are used quite gradually. Moving on to Liverpool, and I don't think analyzing Slot's Liverpool is good because Arne Slot is coaching only one season, so there is no clear pattern of how he uses the team. But somebody like Jurgen Klopp, who have managed to compete for title until the end in a couple of Premier League seasons, could also be taken seriously. So we can see here Liverpool 22-23. Again, there is a quick drop in the beginning around players 6, 7, 8, and then there is a gradual decrease in minutes up until player 20. So 20 players used and counted on, and then the second drop is only after player 20. And Liverpool 23, I'm not sure we have it here. Yeah, we don't have it here. It's only 24, 25. But again, I wouldn't take Slot as a orientation for now. I don't think that this approach is sustainable to compete for 4 titles, or even in 3 competitions. Because if we look at the calendar we had this year, so we see that from the end of November until the beginning of February, we basically had 2 games per week, except one gap around Christmas between Crystal Palace and Ipswich. And all the rest are games every 3-4 days. It's overall 21 game in what I think is 11 weeks. Quite a long period with 2 games per week. And I don't think it's sustainable to start more or less the same squad in this period. If we are talking about players having non-negotiables, then Arteta himself also should take a non-negotiable of rotating players regularly in the packed schedule. We don't have any evidence that the schedule is going to get less dense. Now we have a new competition, quite long competition in the form of a Club World Cup. The general trend, it's going to get only more and more packed. And it doesn't make sense to build motivation of competing in every game if in the span of 1 month of January we get eliminated from both cups and severely undermine our chances to win Premier League. And I would also remind that in the same January there were final games of Champions League group stage. It's getting decisive also there. And for me, the reasonable approach is that at least every 4th game, the player should get a break. I mean, it shouldn't be a strict rule, but in general, no player should play 4 games in 2 weeks and still be expected to keep their fitness and to stay away from the injuries. So for now, I think I'm still a bit skeptical about Arteta's approach. I'm not convinced it's going to change next season because one thing I already highlighted, Gabriel was never rotated until he got injured, even though it was in April, and even though by April we have already lost Saka, Havertz, Odegaard for extended period of time. The Zinchenko example I've already brought up, where he just got pushed away from the trusted circle, and Ethan Nwaneri was another one. As soon as Saka regained his fitness back, Ethan was reduced to come in on 85th minute and only in the half of the games. I don't think this is a good way moving into next season. I think the players like Nwaneri, who has 9 goals this season, who has the only positive goal to XG ratio from our attacking squad, that they shouldn't be trusted. I mean, he is not perfect, and it's completely normal that you will have better players and worse players in the team, but you should accept the drop of quality of performance for the sake of freshness and for the sake of staying in the competition and fighting until the end. I know for my comparisons with Manchester City, some might say, yeah, they can buy whoever they want for whatever amount, 50 million, 60 million, whatever. But still, if your approach is to operate only with 15 best players, it doesn't matter how expensive is your squad. You still can select your preferred 15 from whatever the squad you have available. And especially if in your squad there are players who have already shown that they can play on Premier League level. So for now, I can only hope that if we sign Šeško or Drigo or anyone else, they will not just push someone from the squad, from the trusted circle, and that they actually will extend this circle. And if Arteta is to change, then it means for the next season, we need to see the likes of Kiwior starting 10 games in Premier League. I know there are fans and pundits who say that defensive partnership is important and you cannot break it. But I can say, first of all, Saliba and Kiwior played for 1.5 months, and it was by no means a disaster. It was by no means an awful performance. And second, we can have a second pair of defenders that would play and have Saliba and Gabriel both on the bench. I don't think this should be a problem. I don't think it is fair to recruit or have the players in the squad who only watch Gabriel from the bench. It also means that the like of Ethan Nwaneri should get, 5 to 10 Premier League starts and a couple of Champions League starts. It also means that we need to see Arteta intentionally leaving Bukayo Saka or Declan Rice on the bench with the intention to bring them only for the last 20-30 minutes of the game. Then I'd believe he has changed and he has actually learned that this approach is unsustainable. I guess we have to wait and see. Thank you for your time, and until the next one.